Canada is known worldwide as a land of breathtaking natural beauty, with its lush forests, pristine lakes, towering mountains, and vast coastlines. The country's economic stability has always been a strong point, thanks to its relatively small population and a massive $2 trillion economy, ranking as the world's 10th largest. With a per capita GDP of $53,430, its 40 million residents are among the most prosperous in the world. Canadians are often regarded as some of the friendliest and most welcoming people, making Canada a dream destination for immigrants for decades. The country holds a staggering percentage of the world's fresh water and 9% of the planet's forests, contributing to its clean and pollution-free environment, ranking among the world's top nations with the freshest air quality. Beyond prosperity and natural beauty, Canada is also one of the top 10 safest countries globally, boasting minimal crime rates and a strong sense of law and order. Essential healthcare services are available without significant financial burdens, contributing to an impressive average life expectancy of 83.26 years, placing Canada among the top 20 countries in this regard. With an excellent childcare system, publicly funded education, and robust social security, Canada is often considered an exemplary welfare state. It's no surprise that a 2021 survey found that 77% of Canadians were satisfied with their lives. But the reality of Canada today is very different from the picture we just painted. The housing crisis in Canada has reached alarming levels. In major cities, the average cost of a home or apartment has exceeded $700,000, and prices continue to skyrocket. To put this into perspective, only the top 10% of Canadian households can afford an average home, and on an individual level, only the wealthiest 2% can afford it. This means that home ownership is now out of reach for 90% of families and 98% of Canadians. The situation is even worse in major cities like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. Just a few years ago, in 2016, housing prices were significantly lower, but in the last 8 years they have soared beyond reason. In Toronto, for example, an average household now needs an annual income of $280,000 to afford a home, whereas the city's average yearly income is only $120,000. Rent prices have also spiraled out of control. Over the past 2 years, rents have increased by more than 25% annually. A small 2-bedroom apartment, considered the bare minimum for a family, now costs over $3,300 per month in Toronto, whereas just 3 to 4 years ago, it was around $2,000. This begs the question, how did this happen? The short answer is that Canada, particularly its major cities, is experiencing a severe housing shortage. The housing industry has failed to provide affordable homes, and the Canadian government did not adequately plan for the impact of its aggressive immigration policies. Every year, hundreds of thousands of immigrants settle in Canada permanently or temporarily, but the infrastructure to accommodate them has not kept pace. These new residents, mostly seeking jobs or education, naturally flock to major cities where opportunities are greater, causing an immense surge in housing demand without a corresponding increase in supply. This crisis is now affecting even long-term Canadian residents. Millions are struggling with housing, and many are left homeless, forced to sleep on sidewalks and in their cars. Home ownership rates among Canadians under 40 are lower than those of previous generations, proving that affordability has become a thing of the past. If you live in Canada and do not have a family home passed down to you, owning a house has become a distant dream. The cost of an average home in Canadian cities is now 17.5 times the median annual income. In the 1970s, this ratio was just 3 to 4 times. Experts predict that if the trend continues, home prices will soon be over 30 times the average Canadian's annual income. Population growth due to high immigration has also disrupted Canada's gender balance. Since most immigrants are male, the ratio of men to women has become imbalanced, creating potential social challenges in the future. Skyrocketing housing costs have also negatively impacted the Canadian economy. Household debt, the money borrowed by Canadians to purchase homes, has surpassed the country's total GDP. Canada now has one of the highest debt-to-income ratios globally, with the average Canadian owing 1.8 times their annual earnings. The rising cost of living and high interest rates have made life difficult for most Canadians. Loan repayments have become more expensive, and the cost of household essentials has increased by up to 10% annually in recent years. Canada's economy is also facing challenges from the global shift towards renewable energy. With oil and gas as a crucial part of the economy, Canada's GDP growth was less than 1% last year. Businesses are relocating abroad, and Canada is experiencing capital flight. The G20's only country where more investments have left than entered in the past decade. A staggering 100,000 to 300,000 Canadians leave the country permanently each year. It's ironic. Millions of immigrants move to Canada for a better future, while hundreds of thousands of long-term residents leave because they see no future here. And the ones leaving are from the upper middle class or business sectors, worsening the economic situation. Canada is attracting low-income workers searching for jobs while losing the very people who create jobs and drive the economy. Adding to the crisis, the healthcare system has failed to keep up with the growing population. Millions of Canadians now lack access to a family doctor, and emergency rooms in some areas have waiting times of several hours due to a severe shortage of doctors. One major reason for this is Canada's aging population. 1 in 5 Canadians is now over 65, and the median age is 40, meaning half the population is older than this age. To put this into perspective, if we compare it with India, only 7% of India's population is over 65, and its median age is 28. This highlights just how much older Canada's population is compared to India's. The increasing number of elderly citizens has put enormous pressure on healthcare services. This is why Canada invites millions of young immigrants to maintain its workforce and sustain economic growth. If immigration stops, projections indicate that by 2036, for every 2 working-age Canadians, there will be 1 retiree, and the number of people over 75 will double from the current 2.8 million. As a result, Canadians are no longer as satisfied and prosperous as they once were. Business insolvency applications are rising, and rental properties have become scarce since 2020, adding to the housing crisis that began with the shortage of new houses visible as early as 2015. A recent survey found that 66% of Canadians feel financially trapped, reflecting the growing strain on affordability and living conditions. Public sentiment toward immigration has also shifted. In 2022, only 27% of Canadians thought immigration was excessive, but by 2024, that number had risen to 58%. There have even been protests against immigration policies this year. Moreover, 38% of Canadians believe the country has become economically unequal, with fewer opportunities for the middle class, while 84% say the cost of living has deteriorated. These factors played a major role in Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation, despite his previous popularity. To restore Canada's prosperity and stability, the government must take urgent measures. At least 3.5 million homes are needed immediately, and immigration policies should be reassessed. Large corporations constantly push for more immigration to meet labor needs, often preferring overseas immigrants as they are seen as cheaper labor compared to Canadian workers. However, the government must develop an independent and well-thought-out policy that balances economic demands with the well-being of its citizens, rather than simply catering to the interests of big businesses. Telecom and banking services in Canada are among the most expensive in all developed countries. Policymakers need to review these sectors as well. Over-reliance on the real estate sector is also one of the major reasons for Canada's economic downturn. In the 1980s, its share in GDP was only 8%, which has now increased to 16%. There is an urgent need for reforms in this regard, but it will also be a political challenge because any step taken in this direction could make any political party unpopular among citizens who are benefiting from this sector. Relations with the United States have also become a diplomatic challenge. Donald Trump's suggestion that Canada should become an American state has become an insult for Canadian politicians. The policy of relying on the United States for defense no longer seems viable. Canada now needs to establish relations with powers like Russia and China in line with its interests, especially after Trump's recent tariffs on Canada, which may have made this inevitable. To gauge Canada's focus on defense, just consider this. In 1989, Canada's armed forces totaled 89,000, which has now decreased to just 72,000. despite a 38% increase in Canada's population during these years. This means Canada will have to review its defense policy from scratch. Otherwise, for a vast country like Canada with extensive maritime borders, this could become a serious challenge. Recently, the United States expressed strong displeasure with the Canadian government when 1,200 people were arrested at the US-Canada border while attempting to enter the US illegally. Will Canada's status as a developed and prosperous country remain intact? Will the next government, which will be formed after this year's elections, be able to address the housing cost of living crisis, immigration policies, and health sector reforms? How will Canada reassess its relations with the US, Europe, China, and Russia? The answers to all these questions will only become clear in the future. Thank you for watching the video.